rise and stand for the pledge. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first on the agenda tonight, we have a high school student representative. If you could just say your name at the mic, right over here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Liu. Here are some updates about the high school recently. A couple weeks ago, the Guilderland players performed their musical Beauty and the Beast. They did a fantastic job, and it was a really good show. The spring sports season has started, and many sports are using and enjoying the new turf. The winter sports teams had successful seasons, and 12 varsity teams earned Scholar Athlete team recognition. We also recently had a school assembly about hate speech, and we discussed about it after in homeroom. Mr. P did a really good job, and a lot of the students thought it went well. And lastly, the third quarter is coming to a close, and the cultural fair will take place next week.
Next on the agenda, we have public comment. We have several people signed up in person, and we also have a couple of emailed public comments, so we'll start in person. There's a group of people, I think, that will speak individually. I'll just read all of the names, and then when you go up to the mic, you can just say your name at the mic so we know who's speaking. Julie Petty, Aaron Canal, Chris Hacker, Tom Wallner, Olivia Petty, Hazel Regan, and Hannah Bowman. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the board and guests, my name is Julie Petty, and I am the president of the Guilderland Music Parents and Friends Association. March is Music in Our Schools Month, and on behalf of our organization, we would like to bring your attention to the accomplishments of our music students and also highlight some of the issues that the music program is facing. The combined total number of students in high school ensembles is close to 350. And is evidenced by the almost 1,000 proud parents, family members, and friends in attendance at the recent Pops concert, there is a tremendous amount of support for these students. GP's production of Beauty and the Beast played to nearly sellout crowds earlier this month. Music itself is a curricular subject and part of a student's overall education during the regular school day. Every student who is interested in participating in music is welcome and included in a program. Nobody is cut. Our music programs are actively engaged in making music more inclusive, from linking music to ENL programs to providing donated instruments to students in need that are repaired through the fundraising efforts of Guilderland Music Parents and Friends. We strongly believe no child who is interested should be deprived of the ability to play an instrument because they can't afford to do so. All of these tenets and initiatives support the DEI initiatives of Guilderland schools. The talent level of our music students is quantifiable. So far this year alone in the high school, 39 students were selected for Suburban Council, 37 for Area All-State, 7 for the Albany Pro Musica High School Choral Festival, 2 for Nisbeta High School Honors Band, 3 for All-State, and 1 for All-Eastern. In addition, the GHS Wind Ensemble was recently invited to Nisbeta in Syracuse to demonstrate their unique and cutting-edge student-led collaborative rehearsals to band directors all across the state. Quite simply, Guilderland has a demonstrated reputation for musical excellence. Our talented students and their teachers need an environment that is conducive to learning, rehearsing, and practicing in order to thrive and reach their full potential. There is not enough space devoted to the music program in Guilderland, especially in the high school, for instruction, rehearsals, lesson, and instrument storage. And the drama and musical theater programs must fit in their rehearsals, sets, and props in a shared space that is already overcrowded. We strongly believe it's time that the need for music program space be considered by the board as a significant issue that impacts a large number of students. Other parents and students will provide more details on this issue, but please don't take our word for it. We invite you to come to the high school during class time to see for yourself the challenges facing the music program every single day. On behalf of all music students and parents, thank you for your consideration and your attention to this very important topic.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name is Erin Keinel. I'm the parent of two Guilderland High School students, Landon and Bowden, and they both play instruments and are in various ensembles in the school. I'm also a member of the Guilderland Music Parents and Friends Association. And we as a family support music in Guilderland schools, and we're so thankful for the amazing faculty in the district and the wonderful opportunities our kids have to play music here. I'm here tonight to advocate for the school district's music program and to bring to your attention some of the significant and pressing needs that I've become aware of. Specifically, the space available to the music program, its classes, lessons, rehearsals, and meetings, as well as the theater program, is simply not adequate. We are so fortunate to have multiple large ensembles, including wind, string, and vocal ensembles. These groups require a large rehearsal space. Neither the band room nor the choral room are large enough to adequately or safely hold rehearsals. It's my understanding as well that the band room is a repurposed space not initially intended to be used for music ensemble instruction. The stage is another rehearsal space, yet the fact that it is shared by multiple groups, including music ensembles, the theater program, as well as assemblies and school activities outside the music program, has a direct impact on instruction. Teachers and students must take time from each class to set up and take down chairs, stands, sets, and more. Large instruments, like grand pianos, must be moved back and forth. All of this takes time that could be used for instruction and rehearsal. The only practice rooms available to students are 3 rooms within the choral room. Unlike typical practice rooms, the rooms are not soundproof. That means students are not able to utilize these rooms when there is a class taking place. This significantly limits, or in some cases prohibits, students from being able to use them. Not all students have the ability to practice at home, including percussionists who rely on access to practice rooms and school equipment to practice their instrument. It also means there is no place for students to gather outside of class, after school, to play music together. This is a huge missed opportunity for our students. Investment in a safe space designed for the ensembles that will use them needs to be a priority for the school district. Such an investment would demonstrate our school's commitment to music and to the students and faculty who are part of this amazing program. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Chris Hacker, and I have 4 children in the Guilderland school districts, the older 2 which do play instruments, and the younger 2 will as soon as they can. And to piggyback off of what Erin was speaking of, we have fantastic faculty and great teachers and a lot of passion, and they're making the best of what they can do with the space, which causes some concerns I think that you should hear, because I do believe it falls under the fiduciary purview of the Guilderland schools, and that really comes down to safety and cost. So because there's not a dedicated lesson space, you find that children and faculty need to move large instruments out of storage rooms, through the hallways, into crowded instrument spaces. And that's causing thousands of dollars worth of damage to instruments. Things like pianos, drum sets, large stand-up basses. Even recently, we had a neck snap on a bass that cost thousands of dollars. So that is a financial burden that's being placed on students, and it's being placed on the Guilderland Music Parents and Friends Association, because they are, considerate enough to pay for those repairs. On top of that, you have safety concerns as well, because you have to haul these large instruments around. If you look into the storage space, you'll see these large stand-up basses are at heights taller than I, and I'm a pretty tall person. To have to pull those out, somebody is going to get hurt. To walk down the halls with these large instruments, somebody is going to get hurt. And that's a real concern. You also have no dedicated locked storage space. And I challenge anybody to find a group of teenagers, even the best, who aren't up for mischief. You find instruments go missing, things go damaged. There's multi-thousand-dollar choral risers that sit in the hallways. Screws come missing, they're getting damaged. All of these instruments are becoming damaged, things are going missing. So there's a lot of concerns from that perspective, and this all originates from the fact that there isn't any dedicated lesson space. So we have to use what's available, and it's just not adequate for the capital expenditure that goes into these instruments. So I appreciate you listening to our concerns here. I hope that you find it as important as I do, and I hope you guys have a wonderful evening.
Good evening. My name is Tom Wallner, and I'm the father of 2 Guilderland music students. I have a clarinetist, grade 9, and a trumpeter in 6th grade. We are proud Gilderland residents now, but I am originally from a small town in rural northern Wisconsin. You betcha, eh? I'll keep my colloquialisms to a minimum here. So I'm from out of town, right? I'm not from around here, and I grew up in a music community. I went to Michigan Tech University, a small university focused on engineering primarily, but I was a musician for all 6 of my 4 undergrad and 2 years of grad school. And as a member of the Michigan Tech Jazz Band, I had the opportunity to travel throughout the Midwest in what we would call maybe like a recruiting tour, like, hey, engineers can play music too, come to Michigan Tech, right? So I've seen all kinds of different high school music programs. I've seen them in rural schools, Detroit inner city schools, and suburban schools in between, the whole gamut. And last fall, I finally had the chance to see our Guilderland music department during the open house. And I was really excited to see what, amazing things our district had. And I walked in, and the only thing I can describe is I was resoundingly embarrassed. I don't use that word lightly. I was embarrassed and frankly a little bit angry that all the music programs, have, of all the music programs that I have seen in my travels, this is pretty much the worst facilities I personally have seen. A auditorium is a performance facility. It is not a rehearsal or a teaching facility, period. I was flabbergasted. There's no band room with tiered seating, with a board. There's no, like, a music board even. I'm used to seeing recording infrastructure where a teacher can record a rehearsal and then play it back to the students and say, here's, like, now you can hear where you're making mistakes. None of that exists. We've already talked about the practice rooms, of which, same thing, soundproofing. I'm used to, if a student has time during the day, if they have a study hall, they can get a pass to go to the band room and practice their instrument. I used to organize my own practice sessions with my friends and put together our own small ensembles. I've seen a lot of really good schools as well. I've seen ones amazing. The one thing that I've seen in all of the ones that were amazing were the support of the school board for music and the arts. And we don't necessarily need to be number 1, but I think I'd like to not be embarrassed.
My name is Olivia Petty, and I'm a junior who is very involved in our school's music program. I'm in the wind ensemble, jazz band, concert choir, chamber choir, have been in several Guilderland Players productions, and am currently in acting and directing class. Of these activities, 4 of them, each with different needs and setups, share one space, the auditorium. One of the biggest problems that this shared space leads to is a loss of rehearsal time. On multiple occasions, wind ensemble students have entered the auditorium to a classroom that is not set up. Chairs aren't in the right place, there isn't the right number of music stands, the percussion equipment isn't where it's supposed to be. Wind ensemble rehearsals are only 40 minutes long. We can't afford to spend 5 or 10 minutes fixing our rehearsal space. On top of that, the frustration both the teachers and students feel over these events leads to rehearsals that are not as productive as they could and should be. In acting and directing, we also have to spend class time taking down and replacing the band setup if we want to have the stage for our class. If not, well, there's space in the small pit area and the aisles. And that's fine if we're just doing monologues or if 2 people are performing a scene, but anything more than that starts to get tight. And every time we do use the stage, there's the risk of not setting it up properly, which then loops back to wind ensemble rehearsal the next morning. The issues we're having in our music program are not just independent. Many feed into each other due to the lack of space. In every other class I'm in, the classrooms are ready to go when they start. Our music programs deserve the same.
Hi, my name is Hazel Regan. I'm a junior, and I am in symphony orchestra, concert choir, and chamber choir, as well as being a co-president of Trium Music Honor Society. I have been in 7 shows with the Guilderland Players, also known as GP. Due to the lack of rehearsal rooms for all of the ensembles, the cast and crew of GP, which makes up one of the largest extracurriculars in the high school, are required to share the auditorium stage where we rehearse with the symphonic band, wind ensemble, and jazz ensemble. What this means for GP is that we lose upwards of 30 minutes every rehearsal clearing the stage and then setting it back up for the bands. We also have to take down our set at the end of every rehearsal and reconstruct it at the start of every rehearsal, and we have virtually no backstage area because it always has to be used for the well over 100 chairs and stands and large percussion instruments that have no alternative storage space. And sharing the stage isn't just inconvenient for us. During the weeks leading up to the show, GP gets to keep the stage and the bands have to practice elsewhere, which means that all of the ensembles have to shuffle around. For example, the symphony orchestra, which, like all of the major ensembles, is an academic class, has had to hold rehearsals in 4 different places over the past month due to the lack of adequate space in our music program. Moving just orchestra alone means that around 50 people and their instruments have to be transported through the hallways, which takes time away from our class, which is, again, only 40 minutes long, and has potential for very expensive instruments to be damaged or broken. This constant reshuffling is a huge distraction, and it takes away time and focus from these valuable academic classes. We hope that by bringing this to your attention, we can work towards a solution where our music program has a suitable amount of space. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name's Hannah Bowman. I'm a junior. I'm in jazz ensemble, wind ensemble, and I don't sing, but I'm very involved in band. I've been playing the trumpet for like 6 or 7 years now. It's been a long time. And band is one of those things that means the world to me. I also think the school means the world to me. As some of our parents said earlier, Guilderland's a great school. We have incredible programs and we have incredible students and teachers, but our band program is lacking. It's not good. It's not good at all. And as, again, some of our parents have said, there are major, major health concerns. Not only are we lugging around giant instruments that cost thousands of dollars, we also have to share this space with the symphonic band, which has upwards of 60 or 70 kids in it. That's a fire hazard and a hazard if you have to get out of the school for some reason. Music is more than just music to the kids in this program. Music is an outlet for them, a coping skill. It's more than just about the class to us. Music is a way for us to release our emotions, and for many of us, it's a job we'll be going into in the future. There are several students here who are pursuing a career in music or wish to pursue a career in music. We have incredibly talented students. We have kids being accepted to all Eastern, something that very, very few kids and very, very few schools can say they have. If you care about this music program, if you care about your students, then please consider listening to us tonight, because this music program, it's an incredible thing, and if you stop by to watch it sometime, you'd be amazed with what we can do. And you'd be amazed with what your students are capable of and what they have to show you if you would listen. So thank you.
Okay, the next public comment we have is from Robert DiPasquale.
I'm here to discuss with you guys once again how recess is imperative in grade schools and in middle school in Guilderland. From the last time I spoke with you, I've been educated a little bit more about how recess is operating or lack of operation of recess. In all the middle schools, to my knowledge, in this district, there is no recess at all. It just doesn't exist. They have their lunch and they're scooted back to class. In the elementary levels, recess is kind of optional whether they go outside or not. It's half an hour a day, and it's not broken up. It's usually done at one time. Whether they go out or not is at the discretion of the teachers. It's not done all together, so not all the students get to have recess with the other students, et cetera, et cetera. I was surprised to learn about this, considering that pretty much any scientific community or school-based community who's done any research on recess has found that it is so profoundly important to a child's education for mental, physical, and social well-being of all children. This is not an opinion. It's not my opinion. It is my opinion, sorry, but it's everyone's opinion. Everybody has the same opinion. In Europe, all the top scholastic countries there are in Europe that rank so high on the world scale, all of them have recess as mandatory. Teachers aren't even able to punish their students by keeping them in for recess. And recess is an hour, 60 minutes a day, and it's broken up, and it happens together. So it's not just at one teacher's discretionary time versus another one. It's written into law. Where I come from, recess is the law. And I'm really surprised that it's not here. And, you know, like, I can give you an example. If there's a new student going to a middle school, I can think of one, my son, going to Farnsworth. He has no opportunity to meet his other classmates because there is no recess. There's no real talking time. They get 2 minutes between classes maybe, but there's no recess. There's no playtime. And that's something we enjoy as adults. That's something we enjoy in the workplace. That's something that we always have, but for some reason we're depriving something from these children that everyone has deemed is necessary, and the United Nations has even deemed it a child's right. And we are depriving all of these children of recess. It's not right and it's not correct. And I'm hoping this board will at least make an effort to look into it and try to implement some basic recess rules, laws, and regulations in our school district. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 other public comments that were sent to us. I'll read them. The first is from Keith Kaiser. He writes, "This is to request the Guilderland Board of Education to report the totality of school system resources directed to the threat of mass shootings. Reporting should include the hours of school time spent by students on active shooter drills, the costs of insurance, security personnel, legal consultations, teachers, and school staff. These should be reported separately to each student's family and prominently on the school system website. This is to raise our community's awareness that the threat of mass shootings impacts all Americans. Publicly recognizing the threat of mass shootings is also one small way to support the multitudes of Americans who suffer from the horror of murdered loved ones. Thank you, Keith Kaiser." W. Keith Kaiser. The second public comment is from Sarah Kate Cantor and Joseph Wade. They write, "Due to the tragic school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee yesterday, the revelations about the shooter's gender identity, we are deeply concerned about the mental and physical safety of trans and non-binary people in the U.S. This is a marginalized population that already experiences horrific rates of violence perpetuated against them." And there's a link. "And yesterday's shooting will unfortunately only further inflame the intolerance and bigotry. We would like to see a statement issued ASAP by the administration expressing strong support for the district's trans and non-binary students and employees, and expressing a strong commitment to their mental and physical safety. Thank you. Best, Sarah Kate Cantor and Joseph Wade." Linda, do we have any more public comments? No, okay, thank you. All right, so in response to, there's several topics here. First is the music topic. I know we're in the middle of construction already, but I think the seed has been planted. I know my My own daughter plays in a select band, so I've been to the Pops concert and have seen, and I myself was a Guilderland graduate and I've always been like really proud of the music program here. I have not seen the ins and outs as a parent, so I imagine maybe some of us would like to go see the spaces. I know in the past when we've done capital projects, like the lighting on the football field and the auditorium lighting, I've gone on field trips around the building, and so this is probably the start of a longer discussion. And if anybody else have any comments or questions? Blanca?
Aware of this. My own daughter, as you know, is in GP and in choir, and I didn't know about the space issue. So I appreciate the detail and the time that you spent preparing your comments. And additionally, this is more long-term. I wonder if the same way that we had a subcommittee that explored the turf field, if we could have maybe at some point a subcommittee that explores what ideas have been brought to us today.
Yeah, I think the turf field discussion went to like business practices for a while, and so what's that? Well, from the board committee, it was at business practices, which I'm sure include facilities at some point. But we could, I think this kind of intersects with board goals, because one of the 3 or 4 goals that we've had was facilities and opportunities for an equity for all students. So I think that's one piece. And the second piece, I think, would be bringing it to the business practices at some point to talk about a future capital project. I think this really plants the seed, because this is the first time I'm hearing this, and I love hearing from the students who are there doing this every day. So thank you for putting all of those thoughtful remarks together. The next comment, I think, was about recess. And so I will just, I know we've talked about this before, so maybe Dr. Wiles, I don't know if you could bring this back to the admin and see how that's possible. I know at elementary schools it happens, at middle school it hasn't, and this is probably, again, like a bigger discussion.
Most things are, yes, it
okay.
is.
And lastly, the topic of safety and the school shooting that happened unfortunately yesterday. This is becoming too common. Dr. Wiles, I know that there was a safety committee meeting, and the superintendent will be putting out a message to families later this week, and so hopefully some of those comments will be addressed. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll move on with the agenda. Okay. So everyone is welcome to stay, but we'll be moving on to the budget development part of the board meeting. And I will turn this over to Dr. Wiles.
We don't have any formal presentation around the budget, but because we are coming up to the budget adoption process, which is a week from tonight, we leave this on the agenda to take any comments or questions or thoughts that might be out there. Andrew, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I just wanted to ask, so from the last presentation where we had the PowerPoints up and the tables with the, I guess it was the COVID money, the one that's not recurring, have all of those stayed the same, and the budget, the main budget addresses the middle school class size issue, correct?
Yeah, in terms of discretionary money or money that we have control over, by far the biggest investment is in the middle school class size reduction for 2 grades.
And those are grades 6 and 7, correct?
Yes, because
Okay.
last year we did 8th grade.
Okay.
And as of now, there's been no changes to the grant-funded items.
Okay.
And we continue having conversations about viewing this budget in a long-term strategy, because it's part of the process of ensuring we both take full advantage of the grants, are using them to maximize effectiveness, and also looking forward to life post-grants.
Got it. Other people have questions?
That the 1.0 FTE for the nurse is 1 year, and it's using those COVID funds.
That's correct. It's in the last round of the COVID funds, so it will be in place for 1 more year.
Okay, thanks.
And when did the COVID funds have to be used up by?
There are some, 2 of the grants are sunsetting this coming September, And the remaining grants will sunset next September, but the bulk of our federal funds were in the ones that are sunsetting this September.
Okay.
So even though there's a greater number of grants that expire next year, it's less actual money.
Rebecca?
I was just wondering if there's been any new feedback from the governor about that carve-out for the intensive tutoring?
There has not been. What Assemblymember Fahey said when she spoke to us about the legislature has made clear that they don't support it, but beyond that, there's been no update on the status of negotiations. Budget will be late, but
I think is a way of saying the budget's going to be late.
Is that the same time period, Andrew, with if the state decides to, I don't know if it's this, yeah, I think it would be the state, right, that would decide to do the universal meals because the USDA is not doing that anymore.
So right now, the federal government has not offered a universal meals program. They are looking at expanding options that would not affect our district, but for more high-need districts to expand meals. But the proposals at the state level are for the state to force students to make meals free.
But we wouldn't know that until this budget is, or even
It's
later.
almost, while technically it's not, doesn't have to be done through the budget, it would almost certainly be done that way. So when the
Okay.
budget is passed, we will find out
Okay.
what the state has done about it.
Other questions? I mean, there's really not much room, I feel like, in this budget because of some of the bigger issues that we had to address. So I don't have any other questions. I think it was pretty clear last time. I don't know if anybody else has concerns, questions. Okay. So then is it the vote next week?
So budget adoption is a week from tonight, and just a reminder, the process we use will bring to the board kind of a one-page summary of where we are based on the governor's proposal, and if in theory we do have a state budget, any changes that would make in terms of our revenues. If we have any edits to make with expenses as we fine-tune estimates, we'll share those with the board next Tuesday. And once adopted, that's the plan, and we'll begin work to share information more broadly with our community about the adopted budget. And the vote is May 16, so we'll be getting ready for that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wiles. Next, we have the consent items, which includes the minutes of the March 7th, 2023 meeting, the CSE and CPSE recommendations, personnel action, and financials 1 through 6. Can I have a motion to approve these consent items? Blanca, second. Nate. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Passes 7-0. Dr. Wells, did you want to make any comments about the personnel?
Just a congratulations, thank you. Just a congratulations to all of those individuals who will be awarded tenure, including one who is sitting at this very table, Mr. Regan Johnson, our Assistant Superintendent for HR. Congratulations, Regan.
Thank you. Next, we move on to information items. Superintendent information. Dr. Wiles?
All right, my first item is disappointing. This is the time of year when I give the update on whether or not we will have a contingent holiday before the Memorial Day long weekend, and the answer this year is no. Just to remind everyone, our process is if we have more than 2 emergency closure days, we do not have the contingent holiday. So we had the district had its 3rd day in early March. The middle school had a 4th day back in the fall when we had a water main break. So everyone is on an even playing field right now in terms of that contingent holiday, and hopefully we will get through the rest of the year without any need to close. So we will be in session on May 26th, and we will be closed, the entire district, on Memorial Day, May 29th. Yes.
With the middle school, they don't have to make up that day or anything. We have to have a certain number of people in school on any given day, or what?
So at this point, no one needs to make up anything, but we don't want to be closed at all especially the middle school, doesn't want to be closed.
Right.
So, because we would need to make up that time,
Okay.
because we need 180 days. Shall I keep going? On Friday, as Elizabeth mentioned, our student representative, we had a school-wide hate speech assembly here at Guilderland High School. It was the first block of the day. Our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion did a tremendous job presenting to our entire high school population about the topic of hate speech. In addition to providing some definitions, he brought the topic to life in a very powerful way, really basing his talk out of the actual words of our students who have experienced some version of hate speech here in Guilderland. And he used that to really make the point that we were gathered in the high school gymnasium in order to make sure every child, every student, every adult knows that they are valued and affirmed and cared about. Very powerful time. You could hear a pin drop for the entire 45 minutes of his talk. And then we had students return to homeroom, and they had a series of activities that the homeroom teacher could choose from to enable students to reflect on what they heard. And overall, we heard that those sessions went very, very well. I want to not only thank Mr. Pinchinat for being the front person in this, but also to Mr. Piscatelli and his team. They did a terrific job preparing everyone to have a successful morning, and also to be very organized in getting all of the students to the gym and then back to homeroom, and then after a 2-hour delay, right back to the school day. So it was very, very well done. We have a plan to bring the program to the middle school in a developmentally appropriate way later this spring. And we had visitors from Niskayuna and Bethlehem who are hoping to replicate what we've done. So I feel like we truly led in this particular, and our students were the beneficiaries.
Was it recorded? Out of curiosity.
We did not record it purposefully.
Fair enough. Just curious. I'm interested in hearing it myself, so it wasn't like I wouldn't want it public, but I was just interested.
It was excellent.
Excellent.
If actually,
Heard so
when
much
we do
about
the
it.
middle school one, we can let folks know, and we'd be welcome to come visit. My last topic is an update on the Superintendent's Conference Day, which was March 17th. That feels like several months ago at this point. But on March 17th, there were no programs for students, but we had all of our faculty and staff engaged in a variety of professional development topics. The main, I should say, the topic that was shared across all 7 buildings was the presentation by our Equity Institute teams of their equity action plans that were rolled out to each of their respective buildings. I want to recognize those teams. They did a phenomenal job summarizing and synthesizing all the work they've been doing since summer with Progression Partners and our work with Natalie McGee. The rollouts of the plan were very well received by faculty and staff. There was some immediate feedback that happened within the programs, but we also sent a thought exchange to everyone right after they were rolled out, and it was organized by building, so the building teams will have some specific feedback about each individual plan, which has the unique needs of each of the buildings sort of baked into that. So I'm really proud of all that happened on that day. In addition to that, there were a wide variety of programs, both building-wide and department-wide, specialty topics, so that really, whether you're a teacher, a teaching assistant, a monitor, clerical, there was something meaningful for you to go to and to have some timely feedback and professional development and networking time. And I'm going to hand the baton to Rachel, because she and Rachel Pasheri, who was our technology instructional specialist, put together a terrific survey to gather more feedback. So I'll have you jump in.
So we did send the survey out, and thanks to Rachel Pasheri for her hard work making it look nice and collect the data the way we wanted it to. And we are surveying, as Marie said, teachers, TAs, clerical, aid monitors, everyone who had workshops that they were able to participate in during that conference day. And the survey will be open through the end of next week to give people time to respond. But so far we have 164 responses, which is pretty good for only having had it out a few days. And it's overwhelmingly positive responses at this point, especially about the time that folks had to work either within departments or with their grade level teams and the teacher-led workshops. There was also great positive response to the CPR and first aid workshop that was put on for our aid monitors and TAs. So we're planning to continue some of those programs in the future, and the professional development cabinet will be looking at these results in May and using them to inform what we do for conference days in the future.
And those are all my items.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Wiles. Next on the agenda, Board President information. I have 2 items there. The first is the Cap Region BOCES budget and board election vote. The 23-24 BOCES budget and election will take place on Wednesday, April 19th. There are 4 seats up for election. This is the date of our special board meeting that takes place at 8 a.m. And this will be at the district office?
Yes.
Dr. Wiles? Okay, thank you. So make sure you have it on your calendar. Next is the upcoming Board of Education election. So petitions are available through the district clerk for any resident who might be considering running for the Board of Ed. This year, you need 96 signatures of eligible voters, of eligible district voters. That's based on the 2% of those voting in last year's election. There are 3 3-year terms that are on the board that will begin July 1st, 2023. Just some general information. In order to be eligible to run for the Board of Ed, nominating petitions with 96 or more signatures from qualified voters in the district must be submitted to the district clerk on or before April 17th, 2023, 5 p.m. Anyone who has questions about the duties and responsibilities of a board member may contact the superintendent, board president, or any current member of the board. A candidate must be able to read and write, be at least 18 years of age, a qualified voter, and a district resident for at least 1 year prior to the date of the vote on Tuesday, May 16, 2023. Further qualifications and information is in the packet available through the district clerk. Any questions or comments? Okay, moving on to action items. First, we have school business. I'll turn this over to Andrew.
Thank you. I have a number of items. The first is an emergency contract transportation services. This is for a placement in Glens Falls. We have a second placement, so we are doing an emergency contract while the contract is out to bid.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve this emergency contract transportation? Katie, second. Judy, any questions or comments? All in favor? Passes 7-0. Oh, I'm sorry, 8-0, thank you.
And you did that before.
Yes, we'll have to go back and amend it, sorry. Thanks, Judy.
Oh, wait a minute.
Nobody's remote and everybody's here. Somebody was late, but yes, we're 8. Thank you.
The next item is extending our contract with the Group Management Services, who handles our unemployment third-party administration.
Can I have a motion to approve the unemployment third-party administrative services? Kim, second. Rebecca. Any questions or comments?
Is this something we've always had? And it's always been a separate, I mean, something listed in the, okay.
Yes. Can't say always, but
Well,
yes, we have had it for a long time.
it's not something that we're putting in right now.
It's not new.
Okay, thank you.
Do a motion to, oh, sorry, all in favor? Passes 8-0.
Next item is a budget transfer for $12,000. This is for funds needed to cover software.
Can I have a motion to approve the general fund transfer? Katie, second. Blanca. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Passes 8-0. Andrew, you're going to go back up to there's a workers' comp?
No, that was
Is that the same thing?
that was the second one we did. Oh, we didn't? We did one? Okay.
Yeah, we just did the unemployment one,
Oh,
right?
all right. Sorry, Sorry, item C, using Benetech to administer workers' compensation third-party administrative services.
Can I have a motion to approve the workers' comp third-party administrator? Rebecca, second. Kelly, any questions or comments?
And this is part of what we've always done.
This is something we've always done as well. Yes.
All in favor? Passes 8-0.
All right. Next, we have 2 donations, a viola from Kara Sauer and a drum set from Susan Clemmy.
Can I have a motion to accept the donations? Nate, second. Katie, any questions or comments? Just thank you for those 2 who donated instruments. All in favor? Passes 8-0.
All right. And then the final item is a service agreement for student placement.
Can I have a motion to approve this service agreement for placement? Blanca, second. Kelly, any questions or comments? All in favor? Passes 8-0. And thank you, Andrew. Next, you don't have anything, right, Dr. Wiles, under superintendent action?
No action this evening.
Okay. Under board president, I have a short list of policies that were up for information before. Can I have a motion to accept the policies A through D? Nate, second. Kim, any questions or comments about these? All in favor? Passes 8-0. Next, we have board committee reports. We'll start with audit. I know we had a meeting yesterday, and Rebecca, would you like to give the update?
So we met yesterday, as you said. We reviewed 2 items, the annual risk assessment for 22-23 and the internal audit, which for this year was the school lunch program. So the purpose of the annual audit is to revisit the risks identified in the previously issued report last year and provide a report on the district's steps taken to mitigate those risks, as well as to identify any new risks. Our assessment of risk across all the functional areas was unchanged, except for an increased risk noted in informational systems, and this was not unique to GCSD, but reflective of the increased IT risks across all school districts. There were 2 issues identified for this current year. First, it was noted that the district could do more to identify Medicaid eligibility and obtain parental consent for services that could be billed under Medicaid, and there were some strategies that were going to be put in place to deal with that. Second, the district was encouraged to better review annual rollover for paid time off in light of the different contractual rules with all of the different contracts. We learned that there will be more spot checks for this, and we discussed encouraging those spot checks to include a sampling across all the different contracts. And then Andrew appropriately pointed out that there's going to be a gradual phase-in of better IT software tracking for HR, and it will address some of these concerns. In terms of the internal audit on the school lunch program, there were a few recommendations from Questar. It was recommended that we maximize our USDA funding in order to not leave any funds on the table. It was also recommended to not have an excess balance. Some of these problems were attributed to turnover in our food services director in the last year. And in light of those concerns, we're using some of these excess funds on purchasing equipment so that we don't lose that money. We also discussed that notifying families of the availability of free and reduced lunch could be improved, especially by including languages other than English. We're also going to include eligibility thresholds in the district newsletter in an effort to increase participation and knowledge of the program.
Oh, that was pretty thorough. Thank you, Rebecca. The only other thing I'd add, because going forward, when we select like a topic for the internal audit, I think the meeting notes or the documents that we had yesterday had like a table of all of the more, had a table of all of the internal audits that have happened in probably the past 10 years, so you can see when they've been done. So it's, I don't know, I found it helpful because then when you select a new topic to do an audit on, you can kind of go back and see what hasn't been audited for a while. Because, I mean, I'd like to be an audit again, but in case somebody else wants to be an audit. Thanks, Rebecca. Communications, I think Nate, you're giving update?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I touted Gloria's wonderful reports. Now I got to give one. So we met yesterday. The first topic we talked about was we brought this up at the last meeting, there were some focus groups. There was 2 focus groups a week ago Monday, is that right? Week ago Monday. To talk about budget concerns or budget questions. The first group was primarily elementary parents or community members. The second group was primarily secondary parents, community members. I'll be honest, as we sit here, I can't remember what some of the top level topics are. I'm sure Marie can fill that in if she so desires.
Just very quickly, class size was a high priority, especially across the board, really, that came up. Social emotional wellness for students came up across the board. Availability of teaching assistants, especially in the primary grades, was a big priority. At the secondary, again, class size, safety and security was mentioned several times. There were also some discussions around facilities. The weight room being expanded and upgraded was mentioned, and then painting various places to brighten them up was also noted, and then I think those were the main ones. But
yeah, that's what I can recall. So the second topic we had was community engagement with the development of the budget process. A couple items that came out of that. We're going to be sending out a trifold pamphlet. An extreme, or what was the word you used? An enlarged trifold pamphlet this year, bigger than what we did usually in the last couple of years, full color to kind of lay out for the community all the things that are going into the budget and the budget process. Also part of that, we discussed potentially, there's a number of school events coming up in the next month, or I guess really most importantly prior to the budget vote, where we discussed having members of the board be present and available to community and parents to answer questions about the budget process. I think Marie is going to put together a list of those events, and maybe if the board so desires, we will set up a schedule so that some members can be there to, have a table, for lack of a better term, to answer questions, and I think they're putting together a single-page sheet that really kind of gives everybody a cheat sheet to understand what the budget is and what's going into the budget. Does that sound like something that would be of interest to the board?
I think that's what we were wanting to seek
yeah.
interest from the board, if people would be willing to sit, even for the beginning part of an event, when parents are coming in to hand out, we put together a one-page summary of our budget for the focus groups that would be a handy reference tool that people could pick up. And so if there's interest in doing that, we can put together a Google form with the dates and times and see if there's interest.
Sure. Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If I
All
can.
right.
Okay.
All right, we'll work on that.
The next item we talked about was the engagement in the board election process. We looked over, we had a lot of discussion about this at the last meeting. At my understanding at this point, and I much to his chagrin, I've been calling this the Andy meeting. So the Andy meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday at 5 o'clock. So, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, the 4th. It's the 4th.
The 4th, yeah. The next 5 o'clock before our next board meeting. So I guess it's the easiest way to look at it for anybody who is interested in running and wants to hear the ins and out process from Andy and Maria.
Oh, that's why it's an Andy meeting. Sorry, I was
Yes.
confused.
Andy
So-
Maycock is welcome too.
That's right. Any Andys, it's only for Andys though. Only Andys can go to the meeting. So that will be to, kind of get the ins and outs of the rules of running for a board position. The last item, I'm pulling down my agenda here. Give me 1 second. Guess now it's gone. How did I forget this? So one of the things that I think we've talked about them. I know we've talked about this in prior meetings. One of the things that we are doing this year is we are doing a lot of social media actions to make people aware of what goes into our budget. And for those who are not aware from all of the presentations we've had over the last couple of weeks, 75% plus of our budget every year is for staff. And so we are doing a social media blitz, for a lack of a better term again, just highlighting how that money is used and how the funds from the community are used for the staff and all the different positions that it affects. And I can't remember when the first, is it next Monday?
So these will be released on every Monday, starting next Monday. I think the first one features our bus drivers. Then we'll have one for teaching assistants,
Custodians, teachers, I can't remember all, behind the scenes, front of house, that's probably not there, front office workers.
Clerical.
There you go. That was, we were talking all of the theater, I'm saying front of house, so.
Yeah, and SRO is in there.
SRO is in there. So it'll be, some of it will be videos, some of it will be pictures, all of it will be posted on the social media pages for the district. Again, just to highlight really where the money goes, and so that everybody understands that why it's important, why the budget is important. And I believe that was the last item we discussed, and yeah, so that's communication.
Great, thank you. Next, we have business practices.
We haven't had a meeting, no.
Okay, and no plans? Okay.
No, our meetings, a lot of them are, something comes up.
Yes. And who am I missing here? Policy.
Policy. Yes. We had a meeting, let me see, what day was that? March 8th. And for those who can recall, and I know there might have been some confusion at the last, when I spoke about this at the last meeting, about what the kind of timeline we were working on an anti-hate policy. This March 8th meeting was our first meeting after that meeting that I discussed it. And at that meeting, we did a few things. And one of the things we talked about with the board is that we are going to go and do a thought exchange with students to get a sense of what they would like to see in an anti-hate policy, and we kind of settled on that term. And Matt kind of gave us the details of that thought exchange. High level, I guess the big two items that came out of it was a recognition of Eid, which we have done, and the other one being that the students would like to see, I guess, consequences for people that take negative anti-hate actions against other students, other staff, etc., which is certainly something that was front of mind for us as well. We also reviewed a draft anti-hate policy, and after much discussion, what the next step in the process has been is incorporating some of the better aspects or missing aspects from that anti-hate policy into our existing DEI policy, which is, for those who are looking at the policy manual, it's 0105, and incorporating that as well into the regulation and exhibits that are attached to that 105. So that's been the process over the last couple of weeks of trying to see how we can blend the anti-hate with what we already have so that we don't necessarily conflict in certain areas. The next step in that process, or in the process, again, as we outlined or in the prior meetings, is that the committee is going to meet next Monday, I believe.
Yeah, we're meeting Monday at 2:30 with the students.
With students to talk about kind of where the policy is at, what if they have any questions about it, any thoughts about it, and again, take those thoughts, those questions, and it's just all part of a larger process by all the committee members to refine this policy. It really, at this point, it's going to be a policy amendment. It's not a new policy. It'll be a policy amendment of 0105, which is our DEI policy, to incorporate some things that maybe that we think need to strengthen, or maybe we're missing in that 0105 DEI policy. So that's and we have a meeting scheduled. Again, it's all part of a longer process to get this thing to where we want it to be. We also discussed some older policies. I can't remember why those weren't up for review tonight. I know there were some questions about they had to be looked at. Student privacy policies.
It's convoluted. I've been working on it.
Okay, fair enough. We also reviewed a potential new policy, which would be a social media policy for staff. After some discussion and looking at it, we have turned it over. Part of the process is turning it over to our legal,
right,
to make sure that we aren't doing anything illegal. So that's still a work in progress, and we'll probably take that up at some point, probably once we are done with the DEI amendments.
Yeah, I think the one part, since I'm on a policy committee too, is to highlight that Mr. P came to, has come to the policy meetings and has shared, obviously that a lot of the high school students have done a lot of this work before. We've done any policy kind of work at the board level for DEI work, so to get their input next week, I think it's going to be really good. We have like something to give them and get their feedback on, and hopefully, again, it's just one step in the process, but at least we can have some changes made, especially for those seniors before they graduate. And not that, that'll be the end of it, but because they have been so involved, and according to Mr. P, that they've been so dedicated to the work that it's really important to get their input, so.
Yeah, it's very much a living document at this point. It's going to be under, our hope is, like I said, over the next couple months to really clean it up, to make it a policy that, that is better, not that the one we have now is bad, but better than what it is. So that's a goal, and we're working towards it. And again, we have a meeting next Monday, and I can't remember there's another meeting. We've already scheduled the next meeting to review the policy after that, so.
Great, and the last DEI committee?
Do you want me to? Okay, I can cover.
Sure.
We spent a good portion of the meeting really discussing as a group between school and community and the board and our school field trips and what those look like, and really what the purpose and the goal is, and how we can make them more accessible for all students and to be beneficial for them, not only from a social emotional perspective, but again, truly what is our academic goal with them, and what are we hoping to provide for all of our students. So we really looked at those across the board for the days that we provide for students. A big part of our focus was at the middle school and high school level, just based on what students were doing it there, but it's certainly something that we are going to be looking at for all students across the grade levels, and also for athletic access and things like that, of opportunities that we can better support so that all students are able to participate and benefit, was the majority of what we covered at the last meeting. Was there anything?
Just that part of the impetus for that discussion was how expensive field trips have become, and dues for booster clubs and equipment, things like that. So that's really the type of access that sort of started the broader conversation.
Yeah, and having the discussion of like the different types of trips, the purpose of a trip, and obviously that can change at the different grade levels, so it was a good discussion, I think.
Yeah,
and the one other piece I just wanted to add was that I think it was really cool that they have students creating art to advertise the fireside chat at the library, which I think is awesome. And if I remember, they're going to put the student's name in the corner, so we can recognize that they're involved in that, and it may become a regular thing through Studio Art for students to participate in. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Thank you, Katie. And then I just want to give a really quick update because we had PTA Council last night, and Dr. Wiles and I attended. We just gave the regular board updates, but obviously, we spoke briefly about the loss of Ruth Ann Burby, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Wiles since that topic came up last night, and she was clearly missing.
Yes, Ruth Ann Burby has been just such a champion for the Guilderland Central School District, probably one of the most devoted members of PTA, and wanting to support each and every one of the buildings where her children were, but also the district as a whole. Really such a central part of that organization, and she will be missed. She was a kind soul, generous person, and we will feel her loss. We feel her loss. Our thoughts and prayers go out to her family, and the memorial service for her is next Monday night at the Linwood Reformed Church. I believe it's 6 o'clock, maybe 7 o'clock. I'm sorry if I don't have the right time. But we can put that in the minutes or something, so we clarify that. But Just want to recognize her and express our sincere condolences. It is a loss for our entire school community.
Thank you, Dr. Wiles. Next, we have public comment number 2. Linda, is anybody else signed up? No, okay, thank you. And then last, we have board issues, ideas, and sharing. Does anybody have anything to share? Blanca?
Just a question. Could we possibly attend the cultural fair?
Yeah.
Is that allowed?
Yes. Thanks. Just sign in at the front.
Okay.
Any other board issues, ideas, and sharing? Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn? Nate, second. Blanca, all in favor? Passes 8-0. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.